One of the ways that dog culture spits in the face of Christianity is through the myth and the mystery of dog ownership and dog worship. This is also a way that Christians completely go against God by worshiping dogs. So we're going to look at Adam and Eve, and we're going to look at the Eucharist. So let's do the Eucharist first. I'm paraphrasing this a lot, so for my fellow theologians, feel free to steer me on the right path in the comments. But you see, the Eucharist, as we're reading right here, is where bread and wine are consecrated and believed to become the actual body of Jesus Christ. So this is like in many religions, there's always like a myth or a mystery that we are commanded to believe and commanded to interpret in the way that God tells us to interpret it. And this sacrament, as it says here, is central to the Catholic worship and signifies spiritual nourishment and communion with Christ. The body of Christ, as the Catholic Church calls it, is also like the teachings of Christ and his stories. And the communion happens when you eat and drink and then you speak with your fellow Christians. And so that's just an example of the myth and the mystery in religion. So let's go to another one. Let's go to the summary of Adam and Eve. So according to the Bible, Adam and Eve are the first man and woman in the creation myth of the Abrahamic religions. In the book of Genesis, they lived in the Garden of Eden and they disobeyed God because they ate from the forbidden tree. And a big part of the forbidden tree was the knowledge that they weren't supposed to have. Only God is supposed to have that knowledge. Like lust, like one of the things once they ate from the tree, then they were lusting for each other. And that got them expelled from paradise, and they got introduction, and that introduced sin into the world. So, they knew stuff that they weren't supposed to know, and the snake or the serpent told them to eat it. They weren't supposed to eat it, but who put the serpent in the garden? Didn't God build the garden? There's all these interpretations of the story that make it seem very illogical. But, you're forbidden to go against God as you interpret that story. And so this is just like dog culture. Dog culture is a cheap ripoff of the Bible. It's a cheap ripoff religion of worshiping a beast. And it's all about the mystery. It's all about the myth. So let's go over to a dog culture story that completely demonstrates what I'm talking about here. So notice right off, I've keyword search for investigation. And there's going to be some other words in here like learning, the developing situation. Keyword search some of these stories for yourself and notice it's all about myth and mystery. And as humans that worship dogs, we are not allowed to know what a nasty, filthy beast a dog is. And it's very much like the Adam and Eve. It's very much like many other mythology stories in religion. We're not supposed to know. We're just supposed to follow the word. And let's go. Let's have a look.
Underway into an incident involving a dog in North Miami. A mother and daughter are now being treated in a hospital, and Local 10's Brett Neese is live with what we're learning in this developing situation. Brett.
So they're learning in a developing situation. For the last 5 decades or so, women and children have been killed by dogs. Yet we put more and more dogs in more and more homes. And every single time, that's the way we word it. We're going to learn. We're going to try and figure out what happened here. It's like this, knowing that a dog is a filthy, nasty beast. That's the forbidden fruit that we're not allowed. We're not allowed to question this worship of dogs.
Calvin, so this dog did bite that mother and daughter multiple times, and just within the last 30 minutes, I actually spoke with the dog's owner, who says that the mother and daughter know him, they know the dog, and that girl was just trying to pet the dog when all of this happened. And he says, despite those two going to the hospital, this was all a misunderstanding.
Oh, it's just a misunderstanding. They say this in all of these freaking videos, all of these stories. Look right here. If you do a control F keyword search in any of these dog attacks, misunderstanding, investigation, the word mystery will always come up in here. Like, these people are not allowed to understand what's happening to them. They're bleeding all over the place. They have to lose time at their work. They can't pay their bills. They're having all these problems because their bodies are physically damaged by a dog. But they're just not understanding the situation right. They're just not understanding it. They're not allowed to have this knowledge. It's just like with the Garden of Eden. You guys went and ate that fruit that the snake told you to eat. You know, you guys are so bad. You guys got all this forbidden knowledge.
Bandages wrap the legs of a young
There's your misunderstanding, misunderstanding.
girl and her mother after neighbors say they were attacked by a dog.
I saw the dog bite her. I saw the dog bite her. It was terrible.
It happened around 4:30 in this North Miami apartment building off Northeast 6th Avenue near 138th Street.
And this is in Miami, Florida, too. If you've seen some of my other videos, I gave the governor a hard time because you know what he did? He lifted the ban on these types of dogs for government housing and other housing. So this is going to happen more and more and more. More people are going to be bleeding and going to the hospital as we let more of these dogs into these poor people's houses. And but we're not going to understand it, are we? We're not allowed to understand this. It's like forbidden fruit to understand just how freaking nasty this is. Notice 911 calls right here, 911. I've made several videos about the cost to the community for 911 calls from dog attacks. It's ridiculous. It's over the top piles of cash for 911 calls for dog attacks when we need our police officers to do other things in our community.
Call 911 because the girl was screaming to death. Nothing we can do. Call police.
Neighbor.
Nothing you can do except call the police. That's right. You're not allowed to have any knowledge. You're not allowed to have any power. You're not allowed to defend yourself against these dogs because you just don't understand. There's a myth and mystery about these special dogs. It's just a misunderstanding, you guys.
Neighbors say the attack lasted for several minutes in the courtyard.
That's my first time I see this dog.
Neighbors also say the dog was big, but it's not clear who or what managed to get the dog to stop hurting the girl and her mother.
Again, there's that mystery. Who or what? How did they do it? What did they do? How did they get the dog to stop? Wow.
Police are now working to figure out what led up to the attack.
Here we go again. It's not the fact that the dog is a fanged predator with a prey drive. It's a freaking predator. It's a meat-eating carcass scavenger, inbred, forcibly, incestuously inbred, so that people can have these dogs. But they're going to do, what are they saying? It says right here, investigators. They're going to see what led up to the attack. It's all this huge mystery, this huge misunderstanding.
She was screaming to death, screaming for somebody to help her.
Yeah, how dare us help our fellow humans and get rid of these dogs? There's something so amazing about dogs that we're just not allowed to know. We're not allowed to understand. Dog culture spits in the face of religions.
So the dog's owner was cited for not having the proper tags for the dog and the proper shots and the proper paperwork, but he does get.
So, if the dog would have had some tags, then the dog wouldn't have attacked somebody. You see, this is like another logical fallacy that they throw in our face. Oh, well, the dog owner got cited for bad breath and no tags, and he didn't have a proper haircut, so yeah, it's all taken care of. Totally ignoring the fact that someone's in the hospital with their veins or arteries cut open by this dog. Another mystery, another little sidetrack story to keep us all confused and wondering what could have led up to this terrible thing.
To keep the dog. According to investigators that have since left here, he gets to keep the dog here as long as he quarantines it for the next 10 days.
Okay. Yep. So this is a lot like the Adam and Eve story and many other stories in religion. The humans are, they're just idiots. They just don't understand. And but they're gonna figure it out. They're gonna get the police. They're gonna get this guy right here that you're looking at right now. A dozen other people probably are gonna try to figure out how we can better worship dogs so that our children don't get killed and maimed. It's all a freaking ripoff of religion. It's just a stupid worship of dogs. It spits in the face of other religious stories. But let me remind people about the Adam and Eve story, since I'm using that one. But see this word right here, interpretation? You see, like if you go to church, the Adam and Eve story is allowed to be interpreted and put into context so we can understand like what the meaning of the story is. So even though I'm kind of ripping on religion as I compare it to dog culture, at least in Christianity, somebody that is a pastor or that gives a sermon can take this Adam and Eve story and relate it to modern times. But with these stories like this, with the dog attacks, we're not even allowed to have a voice. For example, the woman that they're interviewing or the man right here, this guy right here, he's not allowed to go and give his interpretation. They're not going to give him a pulpit. They're not going to give him a soapbox to talk about how nasty things are around his apartment because of these dogs biting people. You know, we're not allowed to interpret dog culture. When we do on social media, when we do out in public, we get treated like crap. Yeah. So there you go. That's how religion spits in the face, or I'm sorry, that's how dog culture spits in the face of religion. It tries to do the same stupid thing. It tries to put humans as just these stupid little idiot followers. They just need to figure out what they did wrong to have their children killed. And once they start worshiping dogs good enough, then everything will be back to the Garden of Eden. However, that's not true, because the more dogs we have, the more of these bullshit stories that we have. And ever since the governor of Florida lifted the ban on pit bulls, these stories have been increasing. People getting killed and maimed by dogs right in their own freaking homes. See you guys later.